From loving daughter to angry stranger. Hi everyone. It's me and welcome back to this channel where we talk about narcissism and what it does to us. Today I am going to tell you a story that is about a daughter who is struggling with her father's narcissism, but there's a twist to this one because his narcissism seems to be fueled by alcohol. So let's take a look at how her story illustrates the difference between a drunk narcissist and an angry sober narcissist. And real quick, if you're new here, please join our community of folks who are all learning about narcissism every day. Hit that subscribe button so you can get notified about new videos. Let's go. I was probably 12 years old when my dad drank and wasn't an asshole. He was funny, warm, engaging, generous, and he was fun. Now let me be clear. The rest of the time he was mostly just a regular old garden variety asshole, but those times when he drank and was an asshole were special. Those were bad. You know why? Because it was like being around a stranger. My dad was this person I sort of knew but didn't know. He'd say things that were outlandish, almost aggressive, and then kind of slur his words and stumble around. Looking back, I think he was drunk most of the time when I was growing up, and some days he was obviously intoxicated, but most days he was just kind of drunk. Drunk enough to make really bad and cruel comments and decisions, but not so drunk that it was obvious he was drinking. He would come home from work, have a couple of drinks, and then start in on my mother. She would have done something wrong. Something was wrong with the way she looked, the way she smelled, or the way she spoke. And because he had had a few drinks, he was even more critical and mean than usual. And I remember feeling scared, really scared for her. Not because I was worried he'd hit her, although that happened too, but because I didn't know what he was gonna say next. I recall him criticizing her looks, calling her names and screaming at her. Sometimes he would throw stuff and sometimes he would cry. But those tears were ugly, wet and snotty, and they made me feel worse. Now none of this should have been news to any of you. We know people drink to lower their inhibition and increase their sense of entitlement. And this is true for many narcissistic people. They use alcohol as a way to give them permission to be as horrible as they want without consequences. And alcohol allows them to feel emboldened to express their rage or their disappointment. And it works especially well for covert narcissists who normally modulate their rage and may never express it. Alcohol can loosen that inhibition. But in my father's case, it was different. I don't think alcohol loosened his inhibitions. I think he was always that mean and scary and angry. And alcohol allowed him to be even more mean, scary, and angry. So it became a dangerous thing. As a kid, I begged my mom not to argue back or try to stop him because I was afraid he would get even angrier and scarier. My mom would hide in her bedroom until he passed out. She told me she was scared of him, too. So the message was clear. He was the scary drunk and we shouldn't do anything about it. And all the while he was telling me that I was too sensitive or that my feelings weren't valid. And then he would pat me on the head and call me a good girl. Then he would pass out on the couch watching TV. No matter what he did or said, the next day he would wake up with no memory of it. And if my mom brought it up, he would either get mad at her for bringing up the past or get really sad and tell her he couldn't remember and he was sorry. He was always sorry. He didn't know what he did. And he told us both that he loved us very much. As a child, I felt deeply confused and afraid. How could someone be so loving and so hateful? How could he have no memory of his awful behavior? Why did my mom stay with him? What was she seeing in him? And as I got older, I hated the way he treated my mother and hated that she stayed with him. Yet I still thought he was cool in a strange sort of way. And I kept hoping that one day he would stop drinking because I longed for that funny, warm, engaging, generous and fun dad to come back. Well, he stopped drinking only for a short while when he got sober. He became an angry stranger. There was no humor. He was sullen and brooding and accusatory. He was full of anger and self-righteousness. And that's when he started criticizing me. My appearance, my job, my schoolwork, my friends, everything. And if I tried to explain that maybe he was taking it out on me, he would look me dead in the eye and tell me that that was an excuse and that I was making excuses. He would call me ungrateful and disrespectful. And he demanded that I call him sir or father. And I wanted to scream and cry and shake him, but I would only get more mad and upset. And then he would say, "See, you're getting emotional. That's what's wrong with you. You need to control your emotions." And I would walk away crying. I walked on eggshells around him. I felt trapped. It was unbearable. Then he went back to drinking, which made him funny, warm, engaging and generous again, but also made him mean, scary and angry again. The cycle continued. This went on and on and on. And I found myself stuck in the middle of these two versions of him and unable to navigate this minefield of his unpredictable behavior. I was an adult before I finally understood what was happening. And since then, I have worked hard to heal myself from the trauma of living with an alcoholic narcissist. Therapy has helped immensely. But the truth is that I will never forget that frightening little boy that I once was sitting on the floor listening to my father stumbling around and yelling at my mother and wondering why she didn't leave him. Because the truth is that his alcoholism meant that his narcissistic rage came out in a way that made no sense to me. Some days he was a stumbly, mean, scary stranger. Some days he was a sullen, brooding, angry stranger. And neither version of him ever took responsibility for his actions. Both versions of him were cruel and entitled and invalidating. And both versions of him left my mother and me afraid. Alcoholism and narcissism are a terrible mix. Either the narcissistic person uses alcohol as a way to disinhibit and express their rage and their disappointment, or the narcissistic person becomes sober and their rage expresses itself in ways that are even more insidious. But either way, the people around them suffer and often have no idea how to stop it. In this case, my dad had been drinking since before I was born and I don't believe he ever stopped. He died last year at 78. He was too proud to admit he was sick and he died at home alone. No one knows for sure, but my mom thinks he probably drank himself to death. But I will never know. I guess in some ways he drank himself to death. In other ways, his narcissism killed him. If you have any thoughts about this, please leave them in the comments. Please consider supporting this channel. And thank you again.